Hey everyone, welcome back to CreepyCorner Stories. You know, diving into the dark web is always risky, but sharing these stories with you makes it worth it. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I've noticed that these kinds of stories hit differently depending on where you are. It might even make the experience a little creepier. So, tell me, are you watching from the safety of your home or somewhere less secure? I paid for a time travel simulation on the dark web. The future me sent me a warning. He told me not to check my basement. I didn't even have one until now. Look, I know how this is going to sound. Dark web, time travel, basements appearing out of nowhere. It sounds like I'm making it up, but I swear this is real, and I'm writing it down because I don't know. I feel like I need to get this out. If anything happens to me, maybe someone will see this and know the truth. So, it all started about a month ago. It was one of those random late nights where you can't sleep and you're just scrolling the internet aimlessly. You know how it is. YouTube conspiracy videos, creepy Reddit threads, random TikToks about cursed places in the world. My algorithm was deep in the weird and disturbing zone. I think it started with a video about those iceberg conspiracy charts. You've probably seen them. They start with tame stuff at the top, like aliens and Bigfoot. And then by the time you're at the bottom, it's all government projects to erase people from existence and unexplained disappearances no one talks about. That's where the idea of the dark web popped into my head. Now, I've heard all the stories. Most of it's probably urban legend, but I've always been curious. I mean, people talk about hitmen, black markets, illegal experiments, all that crazy stuff. I don't believe half of it, but still, it's fascinating. I'd been on the dark web once or twice before, just to see if it was as insane as people said, but most of what I found was just sketchy forums and cheap drug sites that looked like they hadn't been updated since MySpace was a thing. But this time, I stumbled onto something different. It started with this random thread on some anonymous forum. People were talking about a website called Chronicles. At first, I thought it was just another one of those scammy, get-rich-quick schemes or fake hacking services. But the more I read, the weirder it got. People weren't talking about buying drugs or stolen credit cards. They were talking about time travel. Apparently, this site let you experience the future. Some people said it was a game. Others swore it was real. But no one could explain exactly how it worked. All I knew was that you had to pay in Bitcoin, and it was expensive. $500 minimum. I'll be honest, I wasn't planning on doing it. I even laughed at myself for considering it. Like, come on, time travel, on the internet, for $500. It sounded like the dumbest scam ever. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The idea got stuck in my head, like an itch I couldn't scratch. And then, that night, I found myself staring at the Chronos X homepage. The site looked legit. Way too legit, actually. It wasn't like the other dark websites that looked like they were designed in Microsoft Paint. This one was sleek, modern, with clean graphics, and this weird futuristic vibe. The tagline on the homepage said, "Experience the future. Meet yourself." There was even a video at the top. It showed a guy, early 30s, kinda nerdy looking, talking to a hologram of himself. The hologram was older, grayer, with this haunted look in his eyes. The video ended with the older version whispering, "Don't make the same mistake I did." I'll admit, It gave me chills. Underneath the video, there was a big red button that said, "Start your session now." I was sitting there at 2 a.m., staring at my laptop, and something in me snapped. I don't know if it was the boredom, the curiosity, or just the sheer stupidity, but I clicked the button. The payment page came up. $500 in Bitcoin. I had some crypto saved up from a few years ago. Nothing crazy. Just a couple $100 I'd thrown at Coinbase during the pandemic because everyone else was doing it. I figured, what the hell? Worst case, I'd lose some money and learn my lesson. So I transferred the Bitcoin. After the payment went through, I got redirected to a form. It asked for some basic info: name, age, email. But then it got weird. It asked for my home address, which I fake-filled, obviously. Then it wanted a photo of myself. That part threw me. Why would they need my picture? But the site said it was for customizing the experience, whatever that meant. I hesitated for a second, then took a quick selfie with my phone. My face looked pale and tired in the dim light of my desk lamp. I uploaded it and hit submit. A loading bar appeared on the screen. It felt like it took forever, but it was probably only a minute or two. Then a message popped up. Your session is ready. Click here to begin. I clicked. My screen went black. For a second, I thought my laptop had crashed. Then a video started playing. At first, it was just static. White noise, like an old TV channel that doesn't exist anymore. But then, the image started to clear up. It was a face. My face, but older. The man on the screen looked like me, but different. His hairline was a little thinner, his face more lined, like he'd been through some serious shit. He was sitting in a dimly lit room that looked almost industrial. Bare concrete walls, a single overhead light, and he looked terrified. He leaned in close, staring directly into the camera, into me. "Listen," he said. His voice was hoarse, panicked. "I don't have much time. You need to leave your apartment. Right now." I froze. My first thought was that this had to be some kind of AI trick, like they'd taken my photo and deepfaked it or something. But then he said something that made my stomach drop. "I know you don't believe me, but think about this. Your kitchen faucet still leaks, right? You burned your hand last week making ramen, and 2 days ago, you got a text from a random number and deleted it without opening it. I swear to God, I felt my blood turn cold. He was right, about all of it. I hadn't told anyone about that stuff. No one. Before I could even process what was happening, future me leaned in closer, his face filling the screen. They're already watching you. You don't have much time. Whatever you do." He paused, glancing over his shoulder like he'd heard something. When he turned back, his voice dropped to a whisper. "Do not check your basement." I almost laughed out loud. Basement? I live on the 3rd floor of an apartment building. There's no basement. But he didn't look like he was joking. The video cut off. Just like that. My screen went black for a second, then flashed back to my desktop. The Chronos X site was gone. The URL didn't work anymore. I sat there, staring at my laptop, my heart pounding. Maybe it was all just some elaborate prank, some high-tech scam. That's what I told myself. But then my phone buzzed. I picked it up, my hand shaking. It was a text message from an unknown number. It said, "Check your basement." I didn't move for what felt like forever. I just sat there, staring at that text. Check your basement. I'm not sure if it was the adrenaline or the sheer absurdity of it all, but I was trying not to laugh and panic at the same time. It had to be some kind of elaborate hoax, like some sick, expensive prank someone was playing on me. Maybe Kronos X had scraped my info from social media or something and used it to mess with me. But here's the thing, I'm careful about my online footprint. My social media accounts are private. I don't even have my full name on anything public. So how the hell did they know about the text I deleted, the leaky faucet, the burned hand? The more I thought about it, the more unsettled I felt. And that's when the real weirdness started. My apartment is small, just a one-bedroom, with thin walls where I can hear my neighbors' TVs late at night. I don't own much. A couch, a desk, a saggy mattress I keep meaning to replace. It's a simple place, and I've lived here for 3 years, long enough to know every inch of it. But as I sat there, staring at my phone, I got this creeping sensation that something was off. It started with the air. It felt heavier somehow, like the room was holding its breath. The sound of my wall clock, the one I'd stopped noticing months ago, suddenly seemed deafening. Tick, tick, tick. And then I smelled it. This faint, metallic scent, like rust and damp earth. I got up hesitantly and started walking through my apartment. My flashlight was still on from earlier, and I was shining it at everything like a lunatic. The smell got stronger as I moved toward the hallway, and that's when I saw it. Right next to my closet, where there had always been a blank wall, there was now a door. It wasn't a normal door either. This thing looked ancient, like something you'd see in an old nuclear bunker. Heavy metal, with a thick wheel lock in the center, and these deep scratches along the frame. My knees actually buckled for a second. My brain was racing, trying to rationalize it. Was this always here? Did the landlord install something and not tell me? Is this some kind of hidden maintenance hatch? But no, I would have noticed. This wasn't just something you miss. I stared at the door, frozen, and that's when I realized something else. The smell was coming from the other side. It wasn't just rust anymore. There was this sour, putrid undertone to it, like rotting meat and damp cardboard, the kind of smell that clings to your throat and makes your stomach turn. And then, as I stood there, my flashlight shaking in my hand, something knocked. I can't even describe the sound properly. It wasn't a polite, "Is anyone home?" knock. It was slow and deliberate. 3 heavy, scraping thuds, like whoever, or whatever, was on the other side, had sharp, brittle nails, and was dragging them across the metal. I backed away so fast that I slammed into the wall behind me. My flashlight slipped out of my hand and clattered to the floor, the beam spinning wildly around the hallway. I don't remember picking it up. I think I just scrambled to my feet and ran back to the living room, slamming the door behind me like that would make a difference. That's when my phone buzzed again. Another text. This one wasn't from an unknown number. It was from me. My own name popped up on the screen, along with my phone number. The text said, "Don't open it." I dropped the phone like it had burned me. My stomach was in knots. The door, the smell, the knocking. It was all too much. My rational brain kept telling me this was some kind of glitch or hack, but there was a small, terrified part of me whispering that this wasn't a joke. I grabbed my phone again, hands shaking, and typed out a reply to the text. "Who is this? What do you want?" No response. I sat there on my couch, every muscle in my body tense, waiting for something, anything, to happen. I kept glancing toward the hallway, half expecting that door to burst open, but nothing did. After a while, I started to calm down. Maybe it was just exhaustion catching up to me, but I convinced myself It was all some elaborate prank. I mean, how could a door just appear out of nowhere? It wasn't possible. It had to be fake, right? So I did the dumbest thing I could have possibly done. I decided to open the door. I grabbed a kitchen knife first. Not that it would have done much if there really was something dangerous on the other side, but it made me feel a little better. My legs felt like jelly as I made my way back to the hallway. The door was still there, looming like some awful secret I wasn't supposed to know about. The wheel lock in the center was rusted, but as I gripped it and started to turn, it moved way too easily, like it had been used recently. When the lock finally clicked, the door creaked open an inch, and that's when I heard it. A faint, wet, squelching sound, like something heavy being dragged across a damp floor. The smell hit me like a punch to the face, so strong it made my eyes water. It was worse than before, sweeter, more sickly, almost human. I pushed the door open further. Behind it was a steep, narrow staircase, descending into pitch-black darkness. The walls were made of crumbling concrete, slick with condensation, and at the very bottom of the stairs, just barely visible in the dim light of my flashlight, was a figure. It was crouched low, hunched over something I couldn't see. Its back was to me, but I could make out patches of pale skin, matted hair, and long bony limbs that ended in what looked like claws. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. The figure stopped moving, like it could sense me. And then, slowly, it started to turn its head. I slammed the door shut before I could see its face. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely spin the wheel lock. As soon as it clicked back into place, I stumbled into the living room and threw up in the kitchen sink. My phone buzzed again. Another text. This one said, "You shouldn't have opened it. I think I'm being watched. I can feel it, even now, as I'm writing this. I don't know what that thing was, but I'm terrified it's still down there. Or worse, that it's not. I don't think I'm going to survive this. But if I don't, at least you'll know what happened. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The hunched figure at the bottom of the stairs, its pale, clawed limbs, the way it stopped mid-movement, like it had sensed me standing there. I sat on my couch, with my back to the wall, a kitchen knife in my hand, and every light in the apartment blazing. The metal door loomed in the hallway, like an unspoken threat. I couldn't bring myself to go near it again. I kept glancing at my phone, half expecting another text, but my phone stayed silent for hours. That should have been a relief, right? No more cryptic warnings, no more messages from me. But the silence only made things worse. It felt like the calm before a storm. And then, just after 4 a.m., the scratching started. It was faint at first, barely audible over the hum of the fridge and the buzz of the fluorescent light in the kitchen. I thought I was imagining it. Maybe my tired, paranoid brain was playing tricks on me. But as the minutes ticked by, it got louder. The sound was coming from the other side of the metal door. It wasn't the deliberate knocking from before. This was something worse. It sounded like fingernails or claws dragging across the inside of the door. Slow, methodical, almost testing. I gripped the knife tighter, my palms slick with sweat. My heart was pounding so loud, I was sure whatever was behind the door could hear it. The scratching stopped. For a moment, I thought it was over. Maybe the thing had given up, or maybe I'd just imagined it. But then I heard something else. A voice. It was faint, muffled by the thick metal door, but I could still make it out. "Let me in," it whispered. I froze. Please, it's cold down here. The voice sounded human, desperate, weak, like whoever it was had been trapped down there for a long time. I'm hurt, the voice said, trembling. Please help me. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe it was just some poor guy stuck in a basement that shouldn't exist. But something about the voice wasn't right. It was too thin, too reedy, like it was trying to sound human, but didn't quite know how. And then it said something that made my blood run cold. You saw me, didn't you? My stomach turned. I saw you too. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly I was on my feet, backing away from the hallway. The knife was still in my hand, but it felt useless. What the hell was I going to do? Stab a metal door? My phone buzzed again. The sound was so sudden and loud, it made me jump, and I nearly dropped the damn thing. It was another text. This time, it wasn't from my number. It wasn't from an unknown number either. It was just blank. No name, no number, no contact info. Just the text itself. It's not human. I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat. My head was spinning. It wants you to think it is. Don't listen to it. Don't let it out. I looked back toward the hallway. The scratching had started again, faster this time, more frantic. And underneath it, I could still hear the voice. Please, I'm begging you. Don't leave me here. It's dark. I'm scared. I don't know how long I stood there, torn between fear and guilt. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to leave, to get the hell out of my apartment and never look back. But at the same time, what if it really was someone down there? What if it wasn't a monster, but a person? I didn't know what to believe anymore. Eventually, the scratching and the voice stopped again. The apartment went eerily quiet, but I didn't feel any safer. The silence felt alive, like something was holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next move. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The operator picked up after 2 rings. 911, what's your emergency? I hesitated. What was I supposed to say? That a secret door had appeared in my apartment, and there was something scratching at it, pretending to be human. They'd think I was high or insane. But before I could speak, the operator said something that made my heart drop. Hello? Are you there? The voice on the other end wasn't the calm, professional tone I'd expected. It was my voice. You need to stop, the operator, I said. You're only making it worse. I hung up the phone and threw it across the room like it was on fire. My entire body was trembling, and then the door opened. It didn't creak or groan like I'd expected. The wheel lock spun with a smooth, mechanical precision, like it was being turned by an invisible hand. I watched in horror as the heavy metal door swung inward, revealing the staircase again. The smell hit me immediately. It was worse than before. Thick, cloying, suffocating. I gagged, covering my mouth with my arm, but I couldn't look away. The staircase was empty. The figure I'd seen earlier was gone. I should have run. I should have bolted out of my apartment and never looked back. But something compelled me to move forward, like I was being pulled by invisible strings. I stepped closer to the staircase, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing the damp, crumbling walls, the slick concrete steps. And then I saw it. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a smear of something dark and wet leading into the shadows. Blood. My legs felt like lead, but I kept moving. Step by step, I descended into the darkness. The smell grew stronger with each step, and I had to fight the urge to vomit. The smear of blood led into a small, low-ceilinged room at the bottom of the stairs. The walls were lined with rusted metal shelves, most of them empty except for a few scattered tools, screwdrivers, wrenches, a hammer. And in the middle of the room, there was a chair. It was one of those old wooden chairs you'd see in a school or church basement. There were thick leather straps attached to the arms and legs, and the seat was stained dark with something I didn't want to think about. But the worst part was the body, or what was left of it. It was slumped over in the corner, half covered by a filthy, blood-soaked sheet. The parts I could see didn't even look human anymore. The skin was pale and stretched tight over sharp, angular bones. The fingers were unnaturally long, tipped with jagged, blackened nails. Its head was twisted at an impossible angle, like it had been snapped clean off the spine. I backed away, my stomach churning. This wasn't just a body. This was something else, something that didn't belong here. And then I heard breathing, slow, wet, labored breathing, coming from somewhere behind me. I turned around, and my flashlight flickered. There, at the top of the stairs, was the figure. It wasn't hunched anymore. It was standing tall, its head cocked at an unnatural angle, its clawed hands twitching at its sides, and it was smiling. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I couldn't. The thing at the top of the stairs stood perfectly still, its head tilted too far to the side, like a broken doll. Its eyes, if they were even eyes, were deep, sunken pits, nothing but blackness staring straight into me. Its mouth was stretched into a grin, so wide it looked like the skin had split at the edges. And the worst part, it looked like me. Not exactly, not like a twin, but enough. Enough that my brain struggled to process it. The same height, the same bone structure, the same messy dark hair, except this version of me was wrong. Its skin was too pale, like it had never seen sunlight. Its hands were long, too long, the fingers tapering into sharp, jagged nails. And that grin, God, that fucking grin, was frozen, unmoving, like it had been carved into its face. Then it spoke. "Why did you come down here?" Its voice was mine, but off, thinner, hollow, like it was struggling to mimic human speech. The way it shaped the words felt deliberate, like someone pretending to talk. I was still gripping the flashlight, my knuckles white, but I couldn't make myself move. My body was in full panic mode, my brain screaming run, but my legs felt like concrete. The thing took a step down the stairs. "You shouldn't be here." I took a step back. It took another step forward. "You saw the body, didn't you?" I couldn't respond. My throat had closed up. The thing took another step. "I told you not to come down here." That snapped me out of it. I turned and ran. I barely made it up the stairs. My legs felt like rubber, but I forced myself to move, nearly slipping on the damp concrete. The second I reached the top, I grabbed the heavy metal door and slammed it shut. I spun the wheel lock so fast, my hands ached, my breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps. My body felt like it was on fire, every muscle screaming in protest. Then, thud. Something slammed into the other side of the door. I jumped back, my heart hammering. My mind was still trying to process what I had seen, what it had said, but all I could focus on was the sound. Another thud, harder this time. The metal door shook. Then came the scraping, that awful, deliberate sound of nails dragging over the metal surface. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't desperate. It was patient, like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. I stumbled back into my apartment, my head spinning. I grabbed my phone, ready to call literally anyone, but the screen was dead. No matter what I did, holding the power button, plugging it in, it wouldn't turn on. My laptop was the same, completely bricked, no lights, no response. I was completely cut off. I sat on the floor, my back against the couch, knife still clutched in my shaking hand. The only sound was my own ragged breathing, until I heard the laughter. It started soft, faint, like someone chuckling to themselves from far away. Then it grew, low and raspy, like dry leaves scraping against pavement. It came from inside the walls, the ceiling, the floor, everywhere at once. And then, my phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it. The screen was still dead, but it vibrated in my hand like I had just received a message. Then, without me touching it, it lit up. My call log opened by itself, and there, at the top of the list, was a recent outgoing call. To my own number. My stomach dropped. I tapped the entry with a shaking finger, pulling up the call details. It had lasted exactly 13 seconds. There was an audio recording. I didn't press play. I couldn't. My thumb hovered over the screen, but something deep in my gut told me I didn't want to hear it. Before I could decide, my phone buzzed again. A text. I told you not to check your basement. My blood turned to ice. The typing indicator popped up. Whoever, whatever, was on the other end was still there, still watching. Another message appeared. But now that you did, you should probably check your closet too. I swear my heart stopped. I turned my head slowly, too slowly, toward my bedroom door. The closet, the one right next to my bed. It was open, just a crack. I never leave it open. And then, as I sat there frozen, staring into the dark sliver of space between the door and the frame, I saw it. A hand. Long, pale fingers, just barely visible in the darkness. Waiting. Watching. My entire body locked up. My breathing was shallow, my pulse hammering in my ears. Then, the door creaked. It was moving. Someone, or something, was coming out. I ran. I don't even remember getting to the front door. 1 second, I was on the floor, staring at the closet. The next, I was throwing the deadbolt and tearing out of my apartment, like my life depended on it. Because I think it did. I didn't stop. Not until I was outside, standing in the freezing night air, gasping for breath. The city was still awake, cars moving, people laughing somewhere down the street. Normal life. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just seen something wearing my face. I turned back, expecting to see it standing in my doorway. But my apartment was dark, silent. The door was still open, and inside, just barely visible from where I stood, the closet door was wide open. I'm writing this from a hotel room. I haven't been back to my apartment. I don't want to go back, but I don't think I have a choice, because my phone just buzzed again. It's another text. Come home. The typing indicator is still there. Whoever's on the other end is still watching, still waiting. And then, the final message appears. You forgot to lock the basement door. I should have ignored the texts. I should have turned off my phone, left town, burned my goddamn apartment down if I had to. But the thing is, when something knows you, when it's in your walls, in your phone, in your own goddamn skin, running doesn't feel like an option. You just start to wonder how far it can reach. Because if it can be in my closet, in my basement, where else can it be? I don't even remember the Uber ride back to my apartment. My brain felt like it had detached from my body, floating somewhere above me, watching me make the worst decision of my life. The driver didn't say a word. Maybe he could tell something was off. Or maybe he knew where I was going. When I stepped out of the car, My building loomed over me, dark and waiting. I should have left, but instead, I walked inside. Everything looked normal. That's what threw me off the most. The hallway smelled the same, stale air, a hint of weed from my neighbor's apartment. The fluorescent lights still flickered. The elevator still made that sad little ding when I hit my floor. I half expected the door to my apartment to be wide open, but it wasn't. It was shut, locked, like nothing had ever happened. But when I pressed my ear to the door, I could hear it. Something breathing, not loud, not obvious, just this slow, measured sound, like someone waiting on the other side. I unlocked the door anyway. The air inside was wrong. It wasn't just the smell, that mix of rust, damp earth, and something sweeter, something rotting. It was the feeling of being watched, like the walls had eyes. The first thing I checked was the closet. The door was open, but it was empty. No hand, no figure crouched in the shadows. Just my old hoodies, some shoes, a box of random junk I hadn't touched in years. But when I turned around, I nearly screamed. The basement door was open. There were footprints on the floor, dark, wet, leading out of the basement and into my apartment. I followed them with my flashlight, my stomach twisting into knots. They went through the kitchen, past the couch, into the hallway, and then they stopped, right in front of my bedroom door. The door was slightly ajar, a crack of darkness peeking through. I reached for the handle, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts. I didn't want to do this. Every part of me was screaming to turn around and run, but I had to know. I pushed the door open, and there I was. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, or at least something that looked like me was. Same face, same clothes, same messy hair, but its eyes were wrong. They were too black, too deep, like there was nothing behind them but empty space. It turned its head toward me, slow and unnatural, like a machine imitating human movement. And then it smiled, not the forced, stretched grin from before. This was worse, because this time it looked natural, like it had finally figured out how to mimic me perfectly. You left the basement door open. Its voice was calm, too calm. I gripped the knife in my hand so tight my fingers ached. I should have lunged at it, should have screamed. Instead, I asked the only thing that mattered. "What are you?" It tilted its head, thoughtful. "I don't know yet." It stood up. I stepped back, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. "But I think I like being you." I don't remember the next few minutes clearly. I just know that I ran, out of the apartment, down the stairs, out onto the street. I don't even remember shutting the door behind me. I stayed at a hotel for 3 days, never turned my phone on, never slept, just sat there, replaying everything in my head. On the 4th day, I worked up the nerve to go back. The apartment was empty, the metal door gone, like it had never been there in the first place. The footprints were gone, the smell was gone, my closet door was shut. Everything was exactly how I had left it before this nightmare started. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I had some kind of breakdown, a stress-induced hallucination. Maybe. But here's the thing. When I walked into my bedroom, I found something sitting on my bed. A phone. Not mine. It was old, like a flip phone from the early 2000s. No branding, no logos, and there was one message on the screen. "You locked the wrong door. I don't live there anymore." I packed my shit and left the next day. Got rid of my phone, changed my number, even moved to a different city. But I know it's not over, because sometimes, late at night, I'll hear my new phone buzz, and when I check, there's never a notification, but the typing indicator is always there, like someone is watching, like someone is waiting, like something is still trying to be me. I found a dark web forum where people watch clown hunts in real time. I thought it was fake until my power went out. Someone in the chat said my location looked familiar. Alright, I don't even know where to begin. I've debated posting this for a while, but after last night, I don't think I have a choice. This all started 2 weeks ago when my friend Liam dared me to check out the dark web. You know how guys are. Dumb bets and stupid dares just to prove who's got the biggest balls. We were hanging out in my apartment, just chilling, watching YouTube horror stories, when he brought it up. Bro, I bet you won't last 5 minutes on a real dark web forum. I rolled my eyes. Dude, that's so 2015. The dark web is just old people buying drugs and overpriced credit card numbers. But Liam just grinned. Nah, bro. I found some crazy shit last night. Forums where people live stream real life hunts. Not just random animals or whatever. People. I laughed. Like the Purge type shit? Come on, man. That's gotta be fake. He shrugged. I thought so too, until I saw the chat. Now, I should mention that Liam's the type of guy who thrives on conspiracy theories. He's always sending me weird TikToks about missing hikers, government experiments, and creepy unsolved mysteries. So, naturally, I assumed he was exaggerating. But then he pulled out his laptop and opened Tor. I leaned in, half expecting to see some obvious scam website with skull gifs and click here for murder pop-ups. But what he showed me was different. It was a forum, the Clown's Den. The layout was simple. Black background, red text, and an old-school forum design straight out of the early 2000s. The posts had cryptic titles like Tonight's Hunt, Special Guest, and Live Stream, Location Guessing Game. The user profiles were even weirder, with clown-themed usernames like Jesters, Smile, Grin Reaper, and Pagliacci's Lament. Some of them had thousands of posts. This has to be an ARG, I said. There's no way people are actually killing each other for fun. Liam didn't say anything. He just clicked on a thread titled, Live Now, the Harlequin Chase. The page loaded a grainy live stream. The footage was shaky, probably taken from a body cam, and showed someone running through a dark wooded area, heavy breathing, crunching leaves. A figure in the distance, tall, lanky, wearing a clown mask, the kind you'd buy at Spirit Halloween. The chat was going crazy. Laughing Jack 89. He's close. Dude's gonna piss himself, LMAO. Carnival King. $5 says he trips. Mr. Mimic. He's near the Red Barn. We've seen this before. Liam and I watched in silence as the guy in the mask got closer. The person filming kept turning back, whimpering. Then suddenly, the camera whipped around just in time to see a flash of steel. Something shiny. A knife? Screaming. Gurgling. The camera fell. Static. The stream cut out. My stomach twisted. Okay, that was either the most realistic fake murder I've ever seen, or it's real, Liam finished. His face was pale. I closed the laptop. Dude, we shouldn't be watching this. Liam hesitated, then smirked. What? You scared? I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we had just seen something we weren't supposed to. That should have been the end of it. I should have just let it go. But, like an idiot, I didn't. I wish I could say I stopped there. that I never thought about it again. But the truth is, I couldn't get it out of my head. That night, after Liam left, I kept replaying the stream in my mind. The shaky camera, the clown mask, the screaming. It was so visceral, so raw. Part of me wanted to believe it was just a stage performance, some kind of twisted live-action horror movie. But the chat felt too real. I barely slept. Every creak in my apartment, every car passing outside made me jump. By the time my alarm went off the next morning, I'd already decided I wasn't going back on that site. I didn't want to end up on some FBI watch list, or worse. But then Liam texted me. Liam, bro, you have to see this. Attached was a screenshot of another Clown's Den post. The title read, New Viewer Alert. Welcome, Observer 345. My blood ran cold. That was the temporary username I'd used to log in. WTF is this? I texted back. Liam, guess they saw you in the chat. Chill though, they do this to everyone. It's probably automated. I wasn't convinced. The screenshot showed replies under the post. People commenting things like, let's see how long this one lasts. I give him 3 days. Bet he won't make it past his first guessing game. My stomach churned. What the hell is a guessing game? I asked. Liam, no clue. Want to find out? I ignored him. Or at least, I tried to. The day dragged on. At work, I kept glancing over my shoulder like someone was watching me. By the time I got home, I was so paranoid, I double-checked every lock on my windows and doors. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the envelope. It was sitting on my kitchen counter, like it had been slipped under my door while I was out. Plain white, no return address. My name was written on the front in sharp, jagged letters. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity, or stupidity, got the better of me. Inside was a single Polaroid. It was a picture of me, sitting at my desk, from last night. The only light in the room was my laptop screen. My face was dimly lit, focused on the live stream. I dropped the photo and stumbled back, my heart hammering. How? How did someone take this? My apartment's on the second floor, and I always keep my blinds closed. I grabbed my phone and called Liam. He answered on the second ring. Yo, what's up? Liam, this isn't funny anymore, I snapped. Did you mess with me? Did you put a camera in my apartment or something? What are you talking about? I told him about the Polaroid. The line went quiet. Dude, he finally said, I swear I didn't do anything. That's not me. Then who the hell? Wait, hold on. He cut me off. Did you use a VPN last night? I froze. No, I hadn't. I'd been so focused on proving Liam wrong that I hadn't even thought about covering my tracks. Shit, Liam whispered. They probably have your IP address. I felt like I was going to throw up. What do I do? Just stay offline, he said. Don't log in again. Don't even open Tor. They'll get bored and move on. It sounded logical, reasonable. But as soon as we hung up, I started noticing strange things. At first, it was small. My phone buzzed with notifications that weren't there when I checked. Instagram stories from accounts I didn't follow, all blank except for clown emojis. My Spotify playlist randomly played distorted carnival music. My smart TV turned on by itself, showing static for a split second before cutting to black. I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence, glitches, maybe even a prank by Liam. But then came the second envelope. This time, it was waiting for me in my mailbox. The handwriting on the front was the same. Inside, another Polaroid. It showed the outside of my apartment building, from the parking lot. The timestamp on the photo. 5 minutes ago. My chest tightened. Someone was here. Right now. I grabbed a kitchen knife and slowly made my way to the window, peeking through the blinds. Nothing. Just the same dark, empty street. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. You're getting warmer. My blood ran cold. I texted back. Who is this? No response. I was about to call the cops when my lights went out. All of them. My apartment was plunged into pitch black silence. Then, my laptop screen lit up. It was open to the clown's den. A live thread. The title read, Tonight's Hunt. Special guest observer _345. I didn't click it. I didn't have to. The stream started automatically. The camera showed someone standing outside my apartment building. They were wearing a clown mask, the same one from last night's video. In their hand was something long and sharp, a machete. The chat was already going insane. Grin Reaper. Finally, some action. Laughing Jack. 89. Get the guy on the second floor. He's freaking out. Carnival King. Oh, this one's gonna be good. I stumbled back, shaking. The camera shifted. The clown was walking now, heading toward my front door. I could hear their footsteps outside. I grabbed my phone and called 911, my fingers trembling so much I could barely hit the numbers. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. Instead, I got a text. Same unknown number. Unknown. They can't help you. The footsteps stopped. My front door rattled. Once. Twice. Then came the sound of metal scratching against wood. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo. It was taken through my peephole. Of me. Standing on the other side. I don't even know how I'm still alive to write this. Every second of what happened next is burned into my brain. I can still hear the scraping of that machete against my front door. It wasn't frantic or rushed. It was slow, deliberate, like they wanted me to know they were there. And then it stopped. The silence was somehow worse. I crouched by my couch, clutching the kitchen knife so hard my hand hurt. My phone buzzed again, lighting up the dark room. Unknown. We're waiting for you. Observer 345. I didn't respond. What could I even say? My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like my chest might burst. I forced myself to my feet and crept toward the door. Every step, feeling like it echoed too loudly in the darkness. I pressed my eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty. No clown, no sound. Just the faint hum of the emergency light above the stairwell. My hands were shaking as I locked the deadbolt, slid the chain into place, and double-checked the handle. My laptop dinged behind me. The stream was still up. The clown was gone from the camera, but the chat was alive, laughing. Jack 89. He's scared shitless, LOL. Pagliacci's lament. Rule number 1. Never lock the door. Carnival King. Oops. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. Rule number 1? What the hell did they mean by crash? The sound of glass shattering came from the kitchen. My body jolted like I'd been electrocuted. I spun around, the knife trembling in my hand. Someone had thrown a brick through my window. It landed in the sink, surrounded by shards of glass. A piece of paper was taped to it, scrawled with the same jagged handwriting from the envelopes. Rule number 2. Stay inside. I backed away, gasping for breath, when something hit me. The stream. I ran back to my laptop, and sure enough, the camera was pointed at my kitchen window. They were filming me, from somewhere outside. I whipped my head toward the broken window, but all I could see was darkness. The streetlights were out, and the alley below was a black void. Another message popped up in the chat. Gestures. Smile. Let's make it interesting. Play the game. The screen suddenly switched. A countdown timer appeared. 10 o'clock. Underneath it, 2 words blinked in bold red letters. Choose now. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a link. Against every ounce of common sense, I clicked it. The page loaded with a simple question. Run or hide? Below that, 2 buttons. Run or hide. I felt like I was going to vomit. My mind raced. Was this some kind of twisted joke? If I ran, would they ambush me outside? If I stayed, would they break in? The timer ticked down. 8:57, 8:56, 8:55. I didn't know what else to do. My fingers hovered over the screen, shaking, before finally hitting hide. The screen went black. For a moment, I thought I'd lost power again. But then the stream came back. The clown was standing in the alley, looking directly at my broken window. They tilted their head, as if listening. Then they walked to the side of the building, out of view. The chat exploded. Carnival King. Ooh, bad choice. Grin Reaper. He's really not gonna like rule number 3. Laughing Jack. 89. This is gonna be a bloodbath. I sprinted to the bedroom, knife in hand. My brain was on autopilot, screaming at me to hide, hide, hide. I ducked into the closet, squeezing myself between a pile of dirty laundry and a stack of shoeboxes. My breathing was so loud, I had to cover my mouth to keep from gasping. Through the thin closet door, I could hear the faintest sound. Thud, thud, thud. Footsteps. Inside the apartment. I clamped my hand tighter over my mouth, my entire body trembling. My bedroom door creaked open. The footsteps stopped. For what felt like an eternity, there was silence. Then, tap, tap, tap. Something sharp dragged across the closet door. My pulse was hammering in my ears so loudly, I thought I might pass out. Then the door burst open. The clown stood there, machete in hand, the mask's hollow eyes boring into mine. I screamed and scrambled back, slashing wildly with the knife. I caught their arm, the blade slicing through the fabric of their sleeve. They didn't even flinch. I bolted past them, out of the closet, out of the bedroom. My bare feet pounded against the floor as I ran for the door. Help! Somebody help me! I grabbed the chain lock and yanked it off, throwing the door open, and froze. The hallway was filled with them. Clowns. At least 6 of them, all in mismatched masks and filthy clothes, some holding bats, others knives. One of them had a sledgehammer. They stared at me, unmoving, like they were waiting for something. Behind me, the chat dinged again. My laptop speaker blasted one final message. Pagliacci's lament. Rule number 3. The game never ends. The clown behind me lunged. I barely ducked in time, their machete slamming into the doorframe. I ran past them, straight into the hallway of clowns. They didn't move, didn't even react. I stumbled to a stop, panting, waiting for one of them to strike. But they just stood there, blocking the exit, watching. Behind me, the first clown stepped out of my apartment. They stood there for a moment, then raised a single finger to their mask. Shh! And then they all turned and walked away. Just like that, they were gone. It's been 3 days since it happened. I haven't told anyone. How could I? If I go to the cops, they'll think I'm insane. Liam hasn't responded to any of my texts. His apartment's empty. But it's not over. Every night, I get more envelopes, more photos. Some are of me sleeping. Others show places I've been. Starbucks, the gas station, even the laundromat. I found a Polaroid on my bathroom sink this morning. It wasn't a picture of me. It was Liam, and he was wearing a clown mask. I didn't sleep after finding that photo. Liam's face, behind that clown mask, haunted me. His eyes, I don't know how to explain it. They weren't his. There was something dead in them, like a marionette being forced to smile for a puppet show. I stared at the Polaroid for hours, replaying every conversation we'd ever had. Was he in on this from the start? Was this all some sick setup? Or had they gotten to him, turned him into one of them? I thought about calling the cops again, but what was I supposed to say? Hi, my best friend might be part of a murder cult that live streams real-time hunts, but I have no proof except this Polaroid. Yeah, no thanks. Instead, I did what I should have done 2 weeks ago. I packed a bag. The plan was simple. Disappear. Get out of the city. Stay off the grid. I didn't care about my job, my apartment, or anything else. I just wanted to vanish before they came back. But as I stuffed clothes into my duffel bag, I noticed something strange. My laptop was on. I hadn't touched it since last night, but the screen was glowing faintly in the dark room. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. The clown's den was open. This time, there wasn't a live stream, just a single thread pinned to the top of the forum. The title made my stomach drop. A message for observer _345. I clicked it. The post was short, just a few sentences in blood-red font. You don't get to leave the game. You don't get to run. You can only play. We're always watching. And then at the bottom, welcome to your guessing game. The screen glitched. My webcam's green light flickered on, and I slammed the laptop shut. My chest felt like it was caving in. They'd been watching me this entire time. I ripped the webcam off my laptop and threw it across the room. But when I turned back, something new was on my phone. A live map. My location was marked with a red dot, moving slightly as I paced the room. There were other dots too. 3 of them, blue, and steadily closing in on mine. I stared at the screen, my breath hitching. They were coming for me. I bolted out of the apartment, taking the back stairwell to avoid the street. My building was quiet, too quiet. Even the hum of the vending machine near the mailboxes was gone. The second I stepped into the alley, the air felt wrong. The silence pressed down on me, heavy and unnatural, like the world was holding its breath. I kept checking the map on my phone as I ran. The blue dots were getting closer, zigzagging through the streets like they knew exactly where I was heading. The first blue dot stopped moving. My map updated, marking its location, an intersection a block away. When I reached it, I slowed down. At first, I didn't see anything, just an empty street, dimly lit by a flickering streetlight. Then I spotted it. A clown. They were standing perfectly still, in the middle of the road, facing away from me. The mask looked hand-painted, with smeared red lipstick and black tears running down its cheeks. In their hand, they held a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. They didn't move, didn't turn around. I tried to go around them, sticking close to the shadows, but as soon as I stepped onto the curb, their head snapped toward me. I froze. We stared at each other for what felt like hours. Then, without a word, they turned and walked down the street, disappearing into the darkness. I kept running. My lungs burned. My legs ached, but I couldn't stop. Not when the blue dots were still on the move. The second one caught up to me, near a gas station. This time, it was a tall, gangly clown with a machete strapped to their back. They were leaning against a light pole, their head tilted back like they were looking at the stars. When they heard me coming, they straightened up and tapped the machete's handle, like they were daring me to make a move. I didn't. I ducked behind the gas station, cutting through the lot and onto another street. But the third dot? That one didn't wait. I was halfway down a side street when I heard the sound of heavy boots behind me. I didn't even look back. I just ran, faster than I ever thought I could. "Observer!" a voice called. It was high-pitched, playful, like a cartoon character mocking me. "You're going the wrong way." I ignored it, sprinting toward the only place I could think of, the old McDonald's at the edge of town. It had been abandoned for years, but it still had a few broken windows and a back entrance that was easy to slip into. I dove inside, barricading the door behind me with a rusted table. The smell of grease and mildew filled the air. The play area was trashed, the ball pit emptied out, the plastic slides cracked and faded. For a moment, I thought I was safe. Then I heard the laugh. It echoed through the building, low and guttural, like someone trying to force air through a slit throat. I spun around, clutching my knife. "Who's there?" No answer, just more laughter, getting closer. The sound of footsteps echoed across the tiled floor. Shadows flickered under the door to the play area. "Rule number 4, a voice said, somewhere in the dark. "No hiding in dead zones." The door burst open. 2 clowns rushed in, their masks grinning with sharp, painted teeth. I swung the knife wildly, catching one of them in the shoulder. They stumbled back, howling in pain, but the other one tackled me to the ground. My knife clattered away, sliding under the ball pit. I clawed at the clown's mask, tearing it half off. Their face was pale and dirty, with wide bloodshot eyes and a jagged scar running down their cheek. "Wrong move," they hissed, pressing a knee into my chest. I thrashed, kicking and screaming, when suddenly a loud bang rang out. The clown on top of me jerked, blood spraying from their neck. They slumped over, lifeless. The other clown bolted. I rolled the body off me and turned toward the source of the gunshot. It was Liam. He was standing in the doorway, holding a shotgun. The clown mask from the Polaroid hung around his neck like a trophy. "We need to go," he said, his voice flat. "Now." We didn't talk much as we drove. I didn't ask how he found me. I didn't ask where he got the shotgun. All I knew was that we were speeding down the highway, the city lights fading behind us. "They don't stop," Liam said finally. "You know that, right?" I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "The clown's den. The game. Once you're in, you don't get out. Not really." I didn't know what to say. Liam glanced at me, his face grim. "There's only one way to win." "What is it?" He didn't answer. We pulled into a rest stop around 3 a.m. The place was deserted, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly in the night. Liam parked the car and turned to me, his expression unreadable. "Wait here," he said, stepping out with the shotgun. I sat there, heart racing, watching as he disappeared into the shadows. That's when I saw it. The envelope. It was sitting on the dashboard, addressed to me in that same jagged handwriting. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid. It was a picture of me, sitting in the car, and behind me, in the reflection of the window, was a clown. I couldn't breathe. The Polaroid trembled in my hands, my fingers going numb. I shot a glance at the window. Nothing. Just the empty rest stop parking lot, bathed in sickly yellow light. But I knew what I saw. The reflection in the photo. The clown. It had been right behind me. I spun around, my heart pounding, half expecting to see a painted grin inches from my face. The car was empty. The air was still. Then, thunk, thunk, thunk. A knock. Not on the driver's side window. Not on the windshield. From the trunk. I nearly jumped out of my skin. My body locked up, screaming at me to run, but my hands were already moving, reaching for the door handle. Then I stopped. Rule number 5. Never open the trunk. I didn't know how I knew that. I hadn't seen it written anywhere, but something deep inside me, some primal instinct, screamed that if I opened it, that would be it. Game over. I squeezed my eyes shut and forced myself to breathe. Liam. I had to find Liam. I shoved the Polaroid into my jacket and climbed out of the car. The cold night air hit me like a slap. The rest stop was empty except for a single gas station and a row of vending machines humming softly in the dark. Liam had disappeared into the tree line beyond the parking lot. The shotgun was gone from the back seat. My phone buzzed. I didn't want to look, but I did. Unknown. You should have run. My breath caught. Another text came through instantly, a blurry image loading underneath the message. It was a picture of Liam, tied to a tree. A clown stood behind him, one hand gripping his hair, the other pressing a knife against his throat. I took off running. The woods swallowed me whole. Branches clawed at my skin. Roots threatened to trip me with every step, but I didn't stop. My lungs burned, my heartbeat hammering in my ears like a war drum. Somewhere up ahead, a scream cut through the trees. Liam's voice. I pushed harder, crashing through the undergrowth, until I saw it. A clearing. Liam was tied to a tree, his hands bound behind him. His face was a mess. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. His lip was split, and his breathing was ragged. But he was alive. Barely. The clown from the picture stood beside him, tilting its head at me like a curious animal. Its mask was different from the others, more realistic, with human-like features stretched into a grotesque grin. In its free hand, it held a machete. The chat dinged from my phone. Carnival King. Final round. Grin Reaper. Time to pick. Laughing Jack. 89. Only one of you gets out. My stomach turned to ice. The clown took a slow step forward, dragging the machete along the ground. My hands clenched into fists. I didn't have a weapon, didn't have a plan, just raw, dumb survival instinct. I glanced at Liam. He was barely holding on, his head lolling forward. He wasn't going to last much longer. And I knew what they wanted me to do. The guessing game. They were making me choose. Run or fight. Save myself. Or try to save Liam. I locked eyes with him. He gave me the faintest shake of his head. Run. I clenched my teeth. Fuck that. Before I could think, I lunged. The clown swung the machete, but I was faster. I dropped low, tackling it around the waist. We hit the ground hard, rolling over the damp leaves. The machete flew from its grip, landing somewhere in the dark. The clown thrashed beneath me, clawing at my face with gloved fingers. I grabbed a rock, something heavy, solid, and brought it down. Once, twice. The moss cracked. Blood seeped through the fractures, smearing against my hands. The clown's body spasmed, then went limp. I staggered to my feet, my entire body shaking. My fingers were sticky with blood. His or mine. I wasn't sure. Liam let out a weak cough. I rushed to him, fumbling with the ropes around his wrists. We're getting out of here, I whispered, my voice hoarse. Liam groaned, his head slumping against my shoulder. They won't let you. Fuck them, I snapped, finally loosening the last knot. Liam sagged forward, barely able to stand. I threw his arm over my shoulder and started hauling him back toward the road. The chat dinged again. Gestures. Smile. Bad move. Pagliacci's. Lament. Rule number 6. There's always another round. The air shifted. A sound echoed through the trees. Laughter. Not just one voice. Dozens. I turned. my stomach dropping. The clown I had just killed? It wasn't dead anymore. It was standing up, and behind it, emerging from the darkness, more clowns stepped into view. One by one, their masks grinning, their weapons gleaming, surrounding us. I tightened my grip on Liam. My pulse was so loud, it felt like it would shatter my skull. We were out of time. "Liam," I whispered, "can you run?" He exhaled sharply. "No." "Then hold on." I threw him over my shoulder and ran. We made it to the road. I don't know how. My lungs were on fire, my legs barely functioning, but I kept going. The headlights of a truck blazed in the distance, coming toward us. I stumbled into the street, waving my arms like a madman. "Stop! Help!" The truck skidded to a halt, barely missing us. The driver, an older guy with a flannel and a beer belly, jumped out. "Jesus Christ, kid, you look like..." He froze. His eyes widened, staring past me. I didn't have to turn around to know what he saw. I grabbed his jacket, desperation in my voice. "Please, just drive." He didn't argue. We barely got into the truck before the clowns stepped onto the road. They didn't chase us, didn't try to stop us. They just watched. As we sped away, I saw the biggest one raise a single hand, a wave, like they were saying goodbye. Or maybe, see you later. Liam's gone. I woke up 2 days after we escaped, in a hospital bed. The truck driver had taken us to a hospital a few towns over, said we'd been jumped in the woods. By the time I came to, Liam was already missing. No one saw him leave. No cameras caught him walking out. His clothes were still on the chair next to my bed, his phone still plugged into the charger. It was like he just disappeared. But I know better. I found one last Polaroid on my hospital nightstand this morning. It was a picture of Liam, standing in the woods, wearing a clown mask. The last rule of the game: no one gets out clean. And my game, it's not over yet. I can still hear them laughing. I paid $500 on the dark web to summon the woman in white. The instructions said to never look her in the eyes. I broke the rule, and now she won't leave. All right, I know how this is gonna sound. You're probably already rolling your eyes, thinking, another dark web horror story. Come on, bro. Trust me, I get it. I used to be the same way, until last week. Now I can't sleep. I can't go outside without feeling watched, and I sure as hell can't look in a mirror without seeing her standing behind me. But let me start from the beginning. So for context, I'm not some wannabe hacker or a tech genius. I'm just a regular dude, 22, college dropout, still living in my shitty studio apartment in Brooklyn. My life was pretty normal, outside of the fact that I spend way too much time doom-scrolling TikTok and watching deep-dive conspiracy videos on YouTube. That's actually how I got into the whole dark web rabbit hole. It started as a joke between me and my buddy Chris. We were hanging out at my place, watching one of those creepy animated horror stories on YouTube, the ones with clickbait titles like "I bought a cursed doll on the dark web," or "This video will summon a demon at 3 a.m. The animation was garbage, but the story was kinda fire. It was about a guy who paid a sketchy website to summon a ghost, but he didn't follow the rules, and the thing attached itself to him. Chris, being the dumbass he is, looked at me and said, "Dude, what if we actually tried that?" I laughed it off at first, but after a few drinks, we'd started browsing. I knew how to access the dark web, not because I was into illegal shit, but because I was a bored insomniac who liked to scare himself at 2 a.m. After about an hour of clicking through dead links and shady forums, We found it. A website called whisperingwraiths.onion. It had this old school black and green aesthetic, like something straight out of 1999. No flashy graphics, no ads, just a simple homepage with a list of rituals you could purchase. Each one had a price tag next to it, ranging from $100 to $5,000. Some of them were straight up nonsense, like the reflection game. Speak to your dead loved ones, $250. The bleeding doll. Summon a familiar, $1,200. The woman in white. A test of the soul, $500. Chris immediately pointed at the last one. Bro, that sounds metal as hell. I clicked on it. A description popped up. She walks where the forgotten sleep. Her gaze is a question, her voice a whisper. Call her, and she will come. But do not look into her eyes. Do not answer her question. And whatever you do, do not say her name. At this point, it was 3 a.m., and I was just drunk enough to think, screw it, why not? I grabbed my wallet, plugged in my burner crypto wallet, and sent $500 worth of Bitcoin to the address listed. A few seconds later, the page refreshed, and a text box appeared. Instructions sent to your email. Now, this was the weird part. I never gave them my email. I checked my inbox, and sure enough, there it was. Your ritual has been approved. Inside was a set of instructions. To summon the woman in white, you must follow these steps exactly. Go to a cemetery between 3 a.m. and 3:33 a.m. Stand at the entrance and knock on the air 3 times. Whisper, I seek the woman in white. Close your eyes. Count to 33. If done correctly, she will appear. Do not look at her. If she asks you a question, do not answer. She will leave if you follow the rules. If you break them, she won't. At this point, I was hyped. It was probably just some elaborate internet prank, but I was all in. Chris, on the other hand, chickened out. Dude, I was joking. I ain't trying to mess with some ghost chick at 3 a.m. pussy. I decided I'd go alone. I don't think I've ever fully understood the meaning of regret until the night I stepped foot into that cemetery. Let me backtrack a bit. It was around 2:45 a.m. when I left my apartment. The air outside was freezing, like the kind of cold that cuts through your jacket no matter how thick it is. I had this pit in my stomach that I kept trying to brush off. You know, when you're about to do something really stupid and your brain is screaming at you to stop. That's what this felt like. But I wasn't about to punk out. I mean, I'd already dropped $500 on this. If nothing happened, worst case, I'd look like an idiot, but at least I'd have a funny story to tell. I walked about 10 blocks to this cemetery near my place. It wasn't some picturesque, well-kept graveyard like you see in movies. It was old, overgrown, and looked like it hadn't seen a landscaper in decades. Most of the headstones were crooked, the names faded. There was a busted wrought iron gate that creaked every time the wind blew. Honestly, the place was creepy enough on its own, without adding the whole summoning a ghost thing. I checked my phone. 2:58 a.m. I stood at the gate and reread the instructions one more time. I was already starting to psych myself out, but I told myself to quit being a baby. It's just a game. At exactly 3 o'clock, I knocked on the air 3 times like it said. It felt stupid, standing there in the dead of night, pretending to knock on some invisible door. But I did it. Then I whispered, I seek the woman in white. The moment those words left my mouth, the air changed. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't the temperature or the wind or anything physical. It just felt heavier, like the entire world had paused to hold its breath. My chest tightened, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. I closed my eyes and started counting. 1 dot, 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 2, 3 dots. Somewhere around 15, I heard it. A faint, rustling noise, like fabric brushing against stone. It was slow, deliberate, and coming closer. My heartbeat was so loud, it felt like it was echoing in my ears, but I forced myself to keep counting. 22, 23, 24. The sound stopped, and then a voice. Software, almost too quiet to hear, but sharp enough to cut through the silence. Do you see me? My blood turned to ice. I knew the rules. I wasn't supposed to answer, and I damn sure wasn't supposed to open my eyes. But here's the thing. When someone asks you a question like that, your instincts take over. Your brain immediately screams, "Look!" And before I could stop myself, I did. I opened my eyes. She was standing about 10 feet away, at the edge of the nearest row of graves. At first, I couldn't process what I was seeing. It was like my brain refused to accept it. She was tall, maybe 6 feet, and dressed in this flowing, old-fashioned white gown that looked like it belonged in some Victorian-era painting. Her hair was long and tangled, almost covering her face, which was pale, too pale, like a corpse. But the worst part, her eyes, they were black, not just her pupils, the entire eye, like 2 empty sockets filled with tar, and she was staring directly at me. I froze. I wanted to look away, but it was like she had me in a trance. My body wouldn't move. And then she smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It stretched too wide, her lips cracking as they pulled back, revealing rows of jagged yellowed teeth. "You broke the rule," she whispered. Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It was layered, like 2 or 3 voices speaking at once. I didn't know what to do. My brain was screaming, "Run! Run! Run!" But my legs were locked in place. She took a step closer, her bare feet crunching against the gravel. I panicked. "Stay back!" I yelled, finally managing to stumble backward. Her smile widened. She didn't stop. And then I did something incredibly stupid. I bolted. I don't even remember how I made it home. 1 minute, I was sprinting out of the cemetery. The next, I was slamming the door to my apartment shut and locking every single lock I had. My chest felt like it was about to explode, and my legs were trembling so badly I could barely stand. But I thought I was safe. I really wanted to believe I was safe. It started about an hour later. I was sitting on my couch, trying to convince myself that what I'd seen wasn't real. Maybe it was some elaborate prank, or my imagination running wild. I mean, this is New York. If someone told me they hired a cosplayer to haunt the cemetery for kicks, I'd believe it. Then my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Snapchat, which didn't make sense because I'd set my account to private months ago. The message was from a username I didn't recognize, at whiteeyes333. No profile picture, no mutual friends. The message just said, "Do you see me?" I dropped my phone. Over the next few days, things got worse. She started showing up, everywhere. I'd see her reflection in windows, just for a second before she disappeared. She'd be standing at the end of the hall in my building, her dress dragging across the floor. Once, I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of her voice, whispering from the corner of my room. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but I didn't want to. And it wasn't just me. Chris came over 2 days after the cemetery thing. As soon as he walked into my apartment, he froze. "Dude, why is there a woman in your mirror?" he asked. I turned to look, but there was nothing there. Chris left after that, He won't answer my texts anymore. Last night was the worst. I was lying in bed, trying to sleep, when I heard my bedroom door creak open. My stomach dropped. I knew it was her. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. The mattress dipped as she climbed onto the bed. Her weight shifted closer, and then I felt her breath against my ear. Do you see me? That's where I'm at now. I haven't left my apartment in 3 days. I've taped over all the mirrors, but it doesn't matter. She's still here. I can feel her watching me, even when I close my eyes. I don't know what she wants, but I'm starting to think I can't outrun her. If you're reading this, don't try it. I'm serious. It's not worth it. And whatever you do, don't look her in the eyes. Edit. She's outside my door. I don't know how she got in the building, but I can hear her whispering through the crack. If this is my last post, you know why. I didn't sleep that night. When I wrote that last edit, the one about her being outside my door, I was genuinely convinced I was about to die. I don't think I've ever been that scared in my entire life. I sat in the corner of my bedroom with a kitchen knife in my hand, like that was going to do anything. What was I gonna do? Stab a ghost? The whispers went on for hours. Sometimes it sounded like she was saying my name. Other times, it was just these long, drawn-out breaths that made my skin crawl. I could see the shadows of her feet under the crack in the door, standing perfectly still. And then, around 4 a.m., the noises just stopped. At first, I didn't move. I thought it might have been some kind of trick, but when the sun started coming up, I finally worked up the nerve to check. The hallway was empty. The only thing left was a handprint on the outside of my door. It wasn't like a normal handprint though. Too thin, too long, with fingers that stretched unnaturally far. The skin looked smeared, almost like ash, and the print reeked of something metallic and sour. I scrubbed at it for 20 minutes before it finally came off. I spent most of the next day trying to convince myself it was over. Maybe I'd imagined everything. Maybe I was losing my mind. It didn't matter how real it felt. Ghosts aren't real, right? By the afternoon, I actually started to believe it. I went to the bodega down the street to grab some snacks. Just something to feel normal again. The guy behind the counter gave me a weird look when I walked in though. He's this older guy, barely speaks English, but we've always been chill. That day though, he wouldn't even meet my eyes. When he handed me my change, he muttered something under his breath. "What?" I asked, leaning in closer. He hesitated, then finally said, "Eyes on you." Bad eyes. I froze. I don't know if he saw her, or if I just looked like I had bad energy or whatever, but it was enough to send me spiraling again. I grabbed my stuff and practically ran home. That night, things escalated. I was lying on the couch, watching TV with the volume cranked all the way up. I figured if I surrounded myself with noise, I wouldn't hear anything. Weird. But somewhere around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was another Snapchat notification. Same username, at whiteeyes333. This time, it was a video. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely open it. When I finally did, I nearly threw my phone across the room. The video was of me. It showed me sitting on the couch in real time, staring at my phone like a total wreck. But what made my stomach drop was the angle. It wasn't from across the room or through a window. It was from right behind me, like someone was standing inches away from my head. I whipped around, fully expecting her to be there, but there was no one. That's when I noticed the mirror. I'd covered most of the mirrors in my apartment with towels or duct tape. but I'd forgotten the one on the inside of the closet door. And there she was, standing just behind me in the reflection, grinning that same horrifying grin. I screamed and threw my phone at the mirror, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. The second it broke, the lights in my apartment went out. The darkness was suffocating. I fumbled around for my flashlight, but before I could find it, I heard her voice again. This time, it wasn't a whisper. It was clear, sharp, and way too close. "You can't hide from me." I stumbled backward, tripping over the coffee table. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like it was going to explode. And then I saw them. 2 black eyes glowing faintly in the dark, just floating in the doorway to my bedroom. She didn't move. She didn't have to. I could feel her staring at me, boring into my skull like she was trying to carve something out of me. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Time felt meaningless, but eventually she tilted her head and said something that made my blood run cold. "You let me in." I don't know what she meant by that. I still don't. But the way she said it, it felt like more than just words. Like she wasn't talking about the cemetery or the ritual. Like she was talking about me. The lights flickered back on a few minutes later, and she was gone. But something was different. You know that feeling when someone's standing behind you? Like you can sense their presence, even if you can't see them. That's how I felt for the rest of the night. No matter where I went in my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was right there, just out of sight. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Instead, I started Googling. I spent hours reading everything I could about the woman in white. Turns out, she's not as obscure as I thought. There are references to her in all kinds of cultures: Latin America, Eastern Europe, even parts of Asia. But the stories are always a little different. Sometimes she's a ghost. Sometimes she's a demon. Sometimes she's just something else. But the common thread: she always has rules. And if you break them, you belong to her. Around 4 a.m., I found a forum post that stopped me dead in my tracks. It was written by someone who claimed they'd summoned her too. Their story sounded a lot like mine. Dark web ritual, creepy cemetery, black eyes. But there was one thing they mentioned that I hadn't read anywhere else. They said she marks you. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's a scratch. Sometimes it's a bruise. But once you're marked, she doesn't just haunt you. She becomes part of you. I was starting to feel sick. I pulled off my hoodie and checked every inch of my skin in the bathroom mirror. Nothing. No scratches, no bruises, no marks. For a second, I actually felt relieved. But then I looked closer. My reflection wasn't moving. That's when I realized it's not just the mirrors. She's inside them. Edit. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. She's everywhere now. Every screen, every reflection. I smashed my TV and laptop, but it doesn't matter. She's still watching me. If anyone knows how to break this, please, I'm begging you. I'll post again if I can. I'm not sure how much time has passed. I haven't left my apartment since the mirror incident. I've stopped eating. I don't check my phone anymore. Every screen, every reflection, it's her. I swear I can even see her in the glass of my microwave door, just standing there, smiling. I've smashed every reflective surface in this place, but it doesn't matter. She's still here. And now, I think I understand what that guy meant in the forum post. The mark. She didn't scratch me or bruise me. She didn't leave some kind of scar. She marked me in a way I can't explain. It's in my head, or maybe my soul. It's like I've been infected. The first thing that tipped me off was the dreams. At least, I think they're dreams. I can't tell anymore. The other night, if it even was night, I woke up standing in the middle of my living room. My hands were covered in something sticky, and there were bloody handprints smeared across my walls. I don't remember doing it, but the blood was mine. I found a jagged piece of glass on the floor, and my palm was sliced open like I'd been gripping it. The thing is, I don't feel pain anymore. Not physical pain, at least. The second thing I noticed was my reflection, or the lack of it. I caught a glimpse of myself in a puddle of water near the kitchen sink yesterday, and it wasn't me. It was her. Her face, her eyes, her cracked, jagged smile staring back at me. But what made me want to vomit was the way she moved. It wasn't natural. She twitched, jerked her head at sharp angles, like a marionette being controlled by someone who didn't know what they were doing. When I stepped back, she stepped forward. When I tilted my head, she tilted hers. And then, she whispered something I'll never forget. We're the same now. I'm losing my mind. I know that. But what scares me most is that I don't think it's just her anymore. There's something wrong with me. It started small, little things I couldn't explain. I'd black out for hours and wake up to find my furniture rearranged or my clothes ripped to shreds. Once, I found a hole punched straight through my bedroom door, and my knuckles were covered in dried blood. But then I started seeing things outside. I live on the 5th floor of my building, and my window overlooks a busy street. Normally, you'd see people walking by, cars honking, maybe some guy yelling at his dog. But now, everyone looks wrong. Their faces are blurry, like smudged photographs. Their mouths are too wide, their eyes too empty. I swear, one of them looked up at my window the other day and laughed. I'm not sure if they're real, or if I'm hallucinating, or if she's somehow bleeding into the world around me. Last night, something happened that made me realize this isn't going to stop. I'd boarded up all my windows and barricaded the front door with whatever I could find. Chairs, bookshelves, even the fridge. I figured if I couldn't see her, I'd be safe. But at exactly 3 a.m., the scratching started. It was soft at first, like fingernails dragging along the outside of the front door. I tried to ignore it, but it got louder, more insistent. And then I heard her voice. Let me in. It wasn't a request. It was a demand. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The scratching turned into pounding, like she was trying to break the door down. I sat there in the dark, clutching a crowbar I'd grabbed from under the sink, praying it would hold. But then she said something that made me want to throw up. You already did. That's when the lights went out. I don't remember what happened next. All I know is that when I woke up, the barricade was gone, and the front door was wide open. I found bloody footprints leading from the door to my bed, small, barefoot, like a child's. They stopped right where I was lying. I haven't closed the door since. I'm too scared to touch it. I tried to call Chris this morning. It went straight to voicemail the first couple of times, but eventually, he picked up. Before I could say anything, he whispered, "She's here." I froze. "Chris, what are you talking about? Are you okay?" He didn't answer. All I could hear was this faint static, like the call was breaking up. But then, through the static, I heard her voice. "Do you see me?" I hung up. I think she's spreading. This isn't just about me anymore. Here's the part I haven't told you yet. A few hours ago, I found something in my closet. I don't know how it got there, and I don't want to know. It was a small wooden box, carved with these strange symbols that hurt to look at. Inside was a knife. It wasn't a normal knife. It looked ancient, almost ceremonial. The blade was black, like it had been scorched, and the handle was wrapped in some kind of leather that reeked of decay. Taped to the bottom of the box was a piece of paper with 2 words scrawled on it. End it. I don't know who left it. I don't even know if it's real. But part of me thinks it's the only way out. I don't want to die. But I don't want to live like this either. She's in my head, whispering things I can't unhear. Sometimes I'll catch myself mumbling to her without realizing it. Other times I'll look down and see that I've carved her name into my arm with my fingernails. I don't even remember doing it. If you've made it this far, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not summon her. I don't care how curious you are. I don't care if you think it's a joke. She's not just a ghost or a demon or whatever you think she is. She's worse. And once she's in, there's no getting her out. Edit. I can hear her again. She's not whispering this time. She's laughing. I think it's time. If this is the last thing I ever post, remember this. Don't look her in the eyes. Don't let her in. And whatever you do, don't answer her question. I don't know how long I've been awake. Time doesn't feel real anymore. I've smashed every clock in my apartment, turned off my phone, shut out the world. But it doesn't matter. She's still here. She doesn't knock anymore. She doesn't whisper. She doesn't need to. She's inside my walls, my veins, my thoughts. She is me. Last night, I blacked out again. When I came to, I was standing in the bathroom with that knife in my hand, the black-bladed one. My arm was covered in something wet and dark, and for a split second, I thought I'd finally done it, finally taken the way out. But then I looked closer. It wasn't my blood. It was writing. Dozens of words, carved into my skin with precision, like someone had taken their time with it. I couldn't read them at first. My vision was too blurry. But as I turned my arm under the flickering bathroom light, one phrase stood out, carved deeper than the rest. Look behind you. I didn't. I wanted to. I needed to. But I didn't. Because I knew if I did, she'd be there, smiling. There are things happening to me now that I can't explain. Things I don't want to explain. I don't sleep anymore. I don't need to sleep. My reflection doesn't follow me when I move. When I breathe, there's a delay, like my lungs are waiting for something else to exhale first. And my voice, it doesn't sound right. It echoes, even in silence. Chris is dead. I saw it on the news this morning. His body was found in his apartment, locked from the inside. They said he'd clawed out his own eyes before he died. His fingernails were embedded in his skull, like he'd been trying to dig something out of his head. There was only one thing written on the walls in his blood. Do you see me? I should feel something. Shock, horror, guilt. But I don't. I just feel her. Every second, every breath. She's not outside anymore. She's not behind me. She's inside me. I think I finally understand the mark. It's not a curse. It's not some supernatural infection. It's a door. When I looked into her eyes that night, I opened it. She didn't need to chase me. She didn't need to break in. I let her in. And now, I don't think I'm alone in here anymore. I picked up the knife an hour ago. I stared at the blackened blade, at the strange symbols carved into it. I think this was supposed to be my escape. But now, I realize it was never for me. It was for her. The thing in the mirror is moving again. Not the way I move. Not the way reflections are supposed to move. It's just standing there, grinning at me. And as I watch, it takes a slow step forward, out of the mirror. There's no escape from this. No undo button. No way to rewind time. But maybe, just maybe, I can stop her from spreading. Maybe I can close the door. I know what I have to do now. I just hope it's enough. Edit. I can feel her in my bones. She's laughing. It's not my voice anymore. I'm sorry. I tried. I really tried. But I don't think I'm the one writing this anymore.